Hello everyone, this is Easy Natural English with Liam, and today I want to talk to you about why you can't learn English with textbooks, or perhaps I should say why you can't learn English only with textbooks, because I think textbooks can help, but today I want to talk to you about why they definitely cannot be the only way you study. And I want to talk about some alternatives. I want to talk about some things you can do to learn English. So I've been an English teacher for many years, and I have taught in many different countries, and I've taught children and adults and students and business people. So I've taught many kinds of students. And what I have seen in my experience is even if a student studies really hard, so they study all the time, they put a lot of time and effort into studying with textbooks and, textbook CDs and these materials made for people learning English, they never really speak English anything like a native speaker. The reason is because textbooks will try to explain rules to you and they'll get you to do exercises, and the English is always in isolation. So isolation means separated from anything else. So, you have these exercises in the book and they might try to create some kind of situation, like the textbook might say, this is a conversation in a shop. But it's still unnatural and robotic and just isolated. It's made for a textbook. It's not a real conversation. So if you learnt some grammar, like for example, if you were learning past tenses and you were trying to understand the difference between I went and I have been, and you can read the rules and you can do the exercises, and you can get a loose idea. You can get a kind of reasonable idea of how this grammar works. But you won't be able to use it in a conversation, perfectly each time. You'll be thinking a lot and you'll be wondering which one you should use to talk about past vacation and which one you should use to talk about something that happened yesterday. And maybe you've had this experience before. But if you learn the rules, and this is why I said I think textbooks can have some use, and I definitely think as a beginner it is good to start with textbooks because you need to, learn the basic sentence structure. You need to learn the basic rules of this new language. So in your case, English or any language you want to study. But after that, like once you have a rough idea or a loose idea of these rules, you need to listen to real English and read real English. So it could be, for example, this YouTube channel, this podcast. It could be movies, TV shows. It could be comic books or newspapers. But you need to actually interact with English. So if you watch movies and you look for patterns, you will see people use this. For example, I was talking about past tenses. You'll see people use past simple in this situation. They use present perfect in this situation. And by watching TV shows unconsciously, so without thinking, your brain is seeing many examples which a textbook cannot provide for you. A textbook will give you maybe a maximum of 10 examples for a piece of grammar, but a movie or a YouTube channel or the radio or even a song, without thinking, they're not trying to teach you English, they're just speaking English. They're going to give you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of examples of that grammar actually in use, the real way that people use it, And at the same time, you'll be learning the correct pronunciation. The different situations that people use, that grammar or that vocabulary, and you're going to actually get a feeling for the language. So then when you go to speak English, you won't be thinking of the rules. You'll just have a feeling for which one is correct, because you'll be hearing people, or like I said, perhaps reading the grammar that people are using for that kind of situation. And like I said, I know this is true because I've been teaching for a long time. And whenever I meet a student who has great pronunciation, natural sounding English, using the right vocabulary at the right time, it's always the students that tell me, and I almost know it before I ask them. I say, how do you study English? Or how did you study English before today? And they always say, I watched movies, I watched TV shows, I listened to the radio, I listened to English music, I read comics, or I read books. It's always the students that really interacted with English. Because if we're always using a textbook, we're just learning about English. We're not really learning English. It's kind of similar to if you wanted to learn basketball and you read many, many books about basketball. You would understand how basketball works, but you wouldn't be able to play basketball if you don't actually touch the ball. And that's the same with English. You really need to listen to English and read English and speak English, and you really need to be using it because that's how you learn your own language, and you can do that with a new language. So, like I said, I do think textbooks can be useful just to check a rule sometimes, and it's good to know the rules for the moment when you're not sure and you think, which one? Okay. But most of the time you should be trying to learn to speak with just a feeling for the language. And even if you want to take an exam, and you want to study for an exam, this still helps. A student that I've taught in the past who completely passed the exam very easily was actually, in the traditional sense, was a bad student. He hated studying the textbook. He didn't do his homework. He didn't do the exercises. But what he did was he just watched YouTube videos in English. He liked playing. So this was a Spanish student of mine. He liked playing guitar and he liked playing video games. So he just watched a lot of YouTube videos in English about video games and about guitars. And his English was so natural when he spoke. His pronunciation was very good. And when he took the Cambridge C1 exam, which is a very difficult exam, he passed it easily. And in the lesson, when I asked him about the questions and he got, I'd ask him a grammar question, it was in the book, and he'd get it right. And I'd say, how do you know that's the right answer? And he'd just say, I don't know, it just sounds right. You see, so he had got that feeling for the grammar. He wasn't thinking about rules, which meant he could speak very quickly and very naturally. So yeah, it's very, very important to interact with English, to really interact with English, and it will be much more fun. I study Japanese this way, and if I try to sit down with a Japanese textbook, I can do it for about 30 minutes, and I get tired and bored, and I'm not concentrating, and then I just want to do something else. But if I watch Japanese movies or TV shows or read comics or read books, then I can do that for hours and hours and hours. And often I do. I can spend 9 hours in one day sometimes studying Japanese because it's not really study. I'm just having fun. I'm watching movies, reading books, reading the newspaper, just doing things that I would usually do in English, but I just do them in Japanese. Recently, I've even been playing video games in Japanese, and that's been very fun. So yeah, just find something that you like to do it in English, and unconsciously, without thinking, you're going to get used to English, and you're going to be able to speak English much better than if you were just using textbooks. So occasionally it is good to look things up. So if there is a piece of grammar or there is some vocabulary that you keep hearing or you keep reading, then put down the movie or stop the movie for a moment and just check online or check a textbook and just check that grammar rule. Just have a rough idea of that rule. So you're like, oh, okay, this kind of situation. And then go back to your movie and look for more examples of that grammar. Yeah, so I do think reading textbooks or reading grammar explanations or asking a teacher can be very useful to give you a good rough idea, but then you need to look for examples and you need to just keep interacting with English, really using English. And of course, you can come and ask me any grammar questions that you want as well. If you don't know, I teach on italki. There's always a link for that in the YouTube videos and in the description of the podcast. So you can come and take a lesson with me. And yeah, if you do have any little grammar questions, I can help you. But then we can have a conversation and we can really use the grammar. And that's when you actually are really learning. So I can explain it to you and then we can have a conversation that uses that type of grammar or that type of vocabulary. And that's when you really get comfortable using it and you'll be able to speak much more confidently and much more smoothly. So yeah, to summarize, don't just learn about English, learn English. So really interact with English as much as possible every day. Every minute that you can, try to listen to something in English, read something in English, watch something in English, speak in English. And don't worry too much about spending hours and hours and hours reading about grammar rules, because you didn't do that in your own language and you don't need to do that in English either. So thank you all very much for listening today. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment. If you're on the podcast, please review and everybody share with your friends. I'll see you all back here next time.